Okay, what if I told you there are other ways to lower your monthly housing costs other than just waiting for interest rates to drop? One of the easiest ways to do that is to make your home more energy efficient. So in this video, we're gonna go over the 5 most common heating types that I see in houses in Halifax and Dartmouth, and we're gonna evaluate them based off how efficient they are. Okay, so before we get into this, I feel like I should kind of clarify the difference between fuel type and heating type. When we look at these different types of heating types, we're not just going to be assessing oil versus propane or propane versus solar. We're going to actually look at the infrastructure that's in place in the house to determine what's the most suitable energy efficient system for that house. Okay, so first things first, the most common heating type that I see in houses, hands down, is electric baseboard. Now, electric baseboard probably gets hated on the most, but it's actually not as bad as you think for homes that are, let's say, less than 2,000 square feet. Sure, you may have a higher utility bill each month compared to if you were on forced air or ductless heat pump, but you also got to take into account that you don't have a fiberglass oil tank that you have to maintain and replace at a certain age. You don't have a furnace that needs semi-annual servicing, so there are some cost savings. There's little to no equipment that you have to maintain, but it's typically a little more expensive to run than some of the alternatives. Now, if you have a home that has electric baseboard heat and you're looking for a way to make your home more efficient, the solution is obvious: ductless heat pumps. Relatively inexpensive, they provide air conditioning and heat, they have a great lifespan, and they require very little maintenance. So based on that, I give electric baseboard heat 2.5 stars out of 5. Number 2, hot water baseboard. Now, if you're not from Nova Scotia, there's a good to fair chance you've probably never even seen this in a house. But hot water baseboard is extremely common in houses over 40 years old. The reason for that is it's a lot easier to heat water than it is to heat air. So you'd have a furnace. The furnace uses some type of fuel, whether it be oil or propane or natural gas. That furnace heats up the water. The water runs through plumbing lines up into your baseboards in your house. It heats up the coils and then radiates heat into the room. Now, if you're somebody who has a hot water baseboard heat at home, the recommendation I would make to you is, if you are on a oil-fired furnace that is hot water baseboard, that you potentially look into switching into propane down the road. I wouldn't go out and spend a bunch of money to replace my oil tank with a propane tank and to replace my furnace with a propane burning furnace. But if I were coming around the expiry of my furnace or the expiry of my old tank and I would needed to replace them anyways, I would maybe look at converting to propane. The reason for that is propane is less volatile. The cost of propane fluctuates less than the cost of oil. So although there may be certain times throughout the years where your oil bills are extremely low because oil is cheap, that most certainly is not the case right now. Propane, although never inexpensive, doesn't really move at the same rate that oil does. So you can expect a more consistent bill over the winter. So based on that, I'm giving hot water baseboard 2 stars out of 5. Okay, number 3 is forced air. Now again, going back to Halifax being an older city, a lot of houses that are over 40 years old, you will see oil-fired forced air furnaces. Forced air is more common in houses that exceed 2,000 square feet, as opposed to letting heat naturally move throughout the house. Forced air does what it's called, and it forces the air through the house in order to heat and cool at the temperature that you desire. The furnaces typically last a long time. There's very little mechanics to them. There's not a lot of moving parts. There's not a lot of water, which would rust certain parts. So they typically are very low maintenance, other than changing filters every once in a while. But you also have very limited control over the heat in your house. Most houses with forced air heat will have 1 thermostat per level. And let's say there's a certain room in your house that you don't want to bother heating. Maybe it's just a storage room. Unlike electric, where you could just walk in and shut the thermostat off, with forced air, you'd have to physically go into the room and close the grate so that the air won't enter the room. Similar to the infrastructure they're putting in new homes, which is a ducted heat pump, it's very easy to convert your old oil or propane forced air system into a ducted heat pump. And if you want to talk about efficient, those things are killer. So based off that, I'm going to give Forced air heat, 3.5 stars out of 5. Although they're not the most efficient out of the gate, they're a very easy conversion and they work on large scale homes. The fourth most common heating type, going back to number 3, is a ducted heat pump. These are some of the most efficient systems out there. There's a reason why ducted heat pumps are the primary source of heat going into most new construction homes. They heat, they cool, they're efficient, they're clean, and they work in almost all conditions. If you have an ability to buy a house that has a ducted heat pump or an ability to convert your home towards a ducted heat pump, do it. You won't regret it, trust me. I'll give ducted heat pumps a 5 out of 5. The fifth most common heat type that I see, and one of the nicest, bougiest ones, is in-floor. Now I'll admit, my opinion on in-floor heat is a little biased. Me personally, I'd be willing to pay a little bit more on my heating bill in order to have the luxury of waking up every morning and stepping onto a very, very warm, heated bathroom floor. But that's just me. In-floor is by no means inefficient. There is also electric in-floor heat, which is less common. I'm not too sure about the efficiency of it. I've very little experience with it, but I would assume it's somewhere along the same lines as running a radiator. So I'll give in-floor heat 4 stars out of 5. Although the perks of in-floor heat aren't necessarily related to efficiency, it is really nice to have in-floor heat in your home, and it's not a budget killer. If you're still watching this video, thanks for sticking with me for so long. I'm interested to know, what type of heating system do you have in your house? Comment in the comment section below. Let me know what type of heating system you have in your house, what you prefer, what you would change about it. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video, and we'll see you on the next one.